This story began not with battles, but with a single glance. The look that changed everything. And that's how it was. Rain poured down in torrents over the battlefield on the planet Zion, turning the dark basalt into an insidious mirror reflecting the stormy ultramarine sky. Raiden Graves stood under the awning, his broad shoulders hunched against the cold. He did not intend to stay on this remote planet, but only to replenish his quantum fuel reserves before continuing his next flight, but the storm chained all ships to the ground. Now he was watching what looked like a ritual battle between the locals. A crowd of blue-skinned Aryans formed a tight circle around the two fighters, their silver hair glistening even in the dim light. Their muttering rose and fell like a tide, a language that his neuroimplant translator had difficulty fully understanding. A grumpy voice rang out next to him. "You shouldn't linger here, this is a clan matter." Raiden glanced at the elderly Aryan, noticing the intricate silver patterns adorning his blue skin. "I'm just waiting. My ship, the Arrow of Light, needs another hour to be ready to fly." The elder's eyes were like solid, featureless spheres. They narrowed, then looked away. What's going on here is not for outsiders, but Raiden's attention had already returned to the duel. One of the fighters, obviously a woman by human standards, moved with amazing grace, despite her obvious exhaustion. Her opponent, a man almost twice her size, pressed relentlessly. The warrior's silver hair, longer than any Raiden had seen among the locals, fluttered around her as she parried the brutal blow. "Who are they?" he asked, ignoring the elder's warning. "The woman is Astra from the Valerian family, the last daughter of a once great family. The male is Drax Crow, the champion of the Renaissance clan. He's fighting to claim her family's ancestral lands, and even if she wins, she won't win," the elder stated bluntly. "Her clan has fallen too low. This is." Drax delivered a powerful blow that knocked Astra back onto the damp basalt. Her tight-fitting black combat clothes, decorated with intricate silver straps, were now torn in several places, revealing deep wounds from which purple blood was oozing. The audience roared with approval as Drax circled around the defeated opponent. Astra struggled to get up, her hand still clutching her clan's sword, a magnificent blade with intricate engravings that seemed to glow with an inner light. Despite the darkness, Drax's voice echoed through the arena. "Your father's sword deserves a stronger hand." "I will not give up the honor of my family," Astra spat out, her voice trembling with pain. Something about her defiance stung Raiden. He had seen too many losers crushed by those in power. It was the story of half the planets in this sector. Before he could change his mind, he was already moving, making his way through the crowd. The noise of the crowd increased as they approached the stage. The crowd recoiled in amazement as Drax raised his sword for a killing blow. Astra shouted, but not to her opponent, Raiden. Too late, when Drax's sword came down, Raiden quickly grabbed Astra's fallen sword and blocked the blow with a deafening clang of metal. The impact shook his arm and shoulder, but he held firm, his muscular body absorbing the impact. A collective gasp went through the crowd as Drax retreated, his four eyes widening in surprise. "This is not your fight, man," he growled. "It seems unfair to kill someone who has already been defeated," Raiden replied, adjusting his grip on his sword. It felt strangely warm in his hand, almost alive. "You're a fool," Astra whispered, her voice a mixture of horror and disbelief. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Before Raiden could say a word, the elder he was talking to earlier walked out of the crowd, followed by a group of people dressed in elaborate ceremonial attire. They stared at Raiden, their expressions ranging from amazement to indignation to, most worryingly, amusement. "The sword has been claimed," the elder proclaimed, his voice echoing through the suddenly silent arena. "According to the ancient protocol of the blade, unbreakable since time immemorial, whoever wields the clan sword in defense of its bearer becomes bound to that bearer by sacred bonds of marriage." Raiden blinked. "What now?" "You have claimed the right to be the husband of Astra from the Valerian clan," the elder continued dispassionately. "The duel is suspended. Now the right to bond must begin." Raiden looked at Astra, who was staring at him with an expression that suggested she couldn't decide whether to thank him or impale him with the same blade he had just used to save her. "I was just trying to help," he said weakly. "Help," she hissed, struggling to her feet. "You've just bonded with a dying clan on a planet you know nothing about. The blade chooses people, and it chose you. There is no escape from here." From this unexpected turn of events, Raiden felt the pressure of 100 pairs of alien eyes on him. He has faced pirates, corporate assassins, and hostile wildlife on dozens of worlds, but nothing has prepared him for this. He came to this planet for a simple refueling stop, and somehow ended up engaged to a woman he hadn't even spoken to. Well, he finally said, forcing himself to smile so that the smile didn't reach his eyes. It will be quite an entertaining story if I live to tell it. You can't really expect me to agree to this, Raiden muttered as he followed Astra through the winding passages of what she described as her clan's ancestral fortress, a massive structure carved right into the mountainside. Despite her wounds, Astra moved with a determined gait, although Raiden noticed that she sometimes leaned against the wall for support. The purple blood from her wounds had coagulated into a dark crust. "My expectations are irrelevant," she replied without turning around. "That's all that matters. The blade can't choose. It's an inanimate object." This made her stop and turn around, her silver hair fluttering like a curtain. Up close, he could see that her eyes were not completely black, as he had first thought. Tiny silver sparks danced in them, like distant stars. "Ether, the blade, has been forged in the blood of my ancestors for 16 generations, she said in a low and strained voice. "He carries the essence of our family. When you grabbed him to protect my life, he recognized in you something worthy of continuing our family." Raiden ran a hand through his short brown hair. "Look, where I come from, marriage requires at least a first date, maybe dinner. There must be mutual agreement." "It doesn't matter where you come from," she interrupted. "You're here, and you've set an ancient law in motion. My clan stands on the side of justice. On the verge of destruction, our lands are being seized, our people are scattering. That confrontation was my last opportunity to defend what little dignity we have left, and now..." A complicated feeling flashed across her face. "Now we have it, unforeseen opportunities." Before Raiden could ask further, they reached an imposing door decorated with intricate silver patterns that seemed to change imperceptibly in the dim light. The guards stood at attention, their faces hardened when they saw Raiden. "The elders are waiting for you," one of them said, not bothering to hide his disdain. The chamber behind them was circular, with a domed ceiling, through the transparent crystal sections of which the stormy sky could be seen. 7 elderly Aryans sat in a semicircle, their elaborate robes and silver facial markings denoting their status. In the center, a woman with hair so long that it dragged on the floor around her raised a crooked hand. When they entered, Raiden approached, and his daughter, Astra, straightened up despite her wounds and walked forward with dignity. Raiden followed her, acutely aware of how out of place his battered flight jacket and cargo pants looked in this formal setting. The tall elder bowed. "I represent Astra from the Valerian family, a human being." The tall elder's voice was filled with disdain. "You have brought a man to the sacred circle, and you call him your betrothed." "I'm not naming anything," he replied. The whispers of the blade reverberated through the assembled elders. One man, with particularly elaborate silver facial markings, leaned forward. "It was unprecedented. No outsider has ever wielded a clan blade. Perhaps because no outsider has ever been stupid enough to interfere in the clan's affairs," another elder said sharply. "The protocol is absolute. If the blade accepted his touch in your defense, then the connection is established." The tall elder raised her hand for silence. Her gaze shifted to Raiden. "The question remains whether this man understands what he has doomed himself to." "With all due respect," Raiden stepped forward, "I don't understand. I saw that someone was going to be killed, and I acted. Where I come from, it's just basic decency." The tall elder repeated the word as if trying something unfamiliar. "Decency. An interesting concept, but irrelevant. The blade does not recognize decency. He recognizes strength, honor, and blood compatibility." Raiden frowned. "You mean yes, human, the blade does not recognize decency, but it recognizes strength and honor?" "The blade would not accept your touch if your genetic structure was incompatible with the continuation of the ether line." It was unexpected, and the commotion at the entrance to the cell interrupted them. Drax Crow entered, followed by his entourage, his massive frame seeming to fill the room with menace. "This farce has been going on long enough," he thundered. The man intervened in the holy battle. The duel was not completed. "The duel became irrelevant the moment he claimed the blade," the tall elder replied coldly. Drax's 4 eyes narrowed to slits. "I dispute the legality of this connection. The man doesn't know anything about our customs. There's no way he can fulfill the duties of a clan husband." The high elder acknowledged, "This is a legitimate concern." Astra stepped forward. "According to the law, he has 1 full cycle of our moons to prove his worth. At this time, he is under the protection of the clan." "A cycle?" Drax laughed harshly. "It will take me much less time to prove his unworthiness." He shifted his gaze to Raiden. "Human you. Even if you have no idea what responsibilities you claim, you have to protect your clan's territories and participate in the council. Strong progeny, Raiden interrupted. Oh, let's slow down on that last part, earning puzzled looks from everyone except Astra, whose translator apparently understood the idiom. The man will be trained in his duties, Astra said firmly, and I will vouch for his learning ability. Brave words from a daughter of a fallen house, Drax grinned. Very good, one cycle. Then we'll see if your human pet can become a true clan husband, or if he'll run back to the stars where he belongs. After Drax ran out, the tall elder stared at Raiden. You have a lot to learn in a very short time, human. Your actions have consequences beyond what you can imagine. Raiden muttered later as Astra led him into what was presumably supposed to be his chambers. He finally asked the question that was burning his mind. Why didn't you just let me go? You could have told them. I didn't know what I was doing. Astra stopped, her expression unreadable in the dim hallway. The moment you took up this blade, you became my clan's last hope. Without you, Drax would have killed me today, and the Valerian line would have ended. You have a small chance, more than I had this morning. Her gaze met his, fierce and unyielding. A chance to recover, to return what was stolen from us, to make sure that my family's sacrifices were not in vain. She came closer, so close that he could smell the unfamiliar scent of her skin. You may not have chosen this, Raiden Graves, but neither did I. We are now bound by blood and honor. The only question is whether you will run away from this connection or accept it. With that, she turned around and continued walking down the hallway, leaving Raiden to ponder his next move. To wonder what kind of situation he was in, and if he had a chance to get out of it again. Astra's voice echoed through the training hall as Raiden exhaled slowly, picking up the training sword, a weighted replica of the clan sword that now rested in the ceremonial room. His muscles were burning from 3 hours of continuous exercise. Your stance is still wrong, she said, walking critically around him. Lower your center of gravity, bend your knees harder. On Earth, we have a concept called taking a break, Raiden chuckled, but still adjusted his posture. It's been 5 solar cycles since their fateful duel. 5 cycles of intense cultural and combat training had left Raiden exhausted. Zion's lunar cycle is approximately 28 Earth days, which means that he has just over 3 weeks left to master the skills that Aryans spent their entire lives perfecting. Breaks are for those who can afford them, Astra replied, though she kept moving. She sat down on the next bench, wincing slightly. Her wounds were healing, but not as fast as she pretended. Raiden lowered his practice sword. You should be resting too. These cuts were deep. My physical condition doesn't matter compared to the current task, which is to turn me into a real husband of the clan in record time. He joined her on the bench. I understand that this is important to you, but there is a limit to how much the human brain can absorb in one day. For a moment, he thought she was going to argue, but instead she nodded. You're right. I was too diligent with your training. Tell me about your father. Raiden said, taking advantage of a rare moment of personal conversation. Astra was silent for so long, he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than he had heard before. Tibor Valerian was the best swordsman of his generation. He led our clan through border wars and forged alliances that have kept us strong for decades. Her fingers traced an invisible path across the bench. An invisible pattern on the bench, but the force calls for a challenge. The Qatar clan has always been jealous of our territories, especially the crystal mines in the northern regions. What happened? The poison, she said, is not a fair fight, just the poison in his evening meal. By the time I returned from my military service, he was gone, and our clan was in disarray. Drax's father has already taken over 2 of our remote territories. Raiden learned that, and no one did anything about it. There must be some kind of planetary law. Astra's laugh was bitter. The law is simple, the strong survive, the weak die. Without my father's leadership, we were considered weak. One by one, our allies abandoned us. So you challenged Drax to get back what you lost. She nodded. It wasn't my wisest decision, but it was the only option left. A young envoy entered. Her silver hair was cropped short. Dear Astra, the council of the 3 clans has requested your presence. And your betrothed, Astra, stood up abruptly. The Qatar clan has scheduled another emergency meeting for the next 8 solar cycles. All members must be present. After the messenger left, Raiden raised an eyebrow. I guess that's not good news. This is Drax's first move. Astra has already started preparing for her official outfit. He's forcing a public assessment until we're ready. The council chamber was a huge amphitheater carved out of dark stone. 3 massive clan banners hung from the ceiling. The silver sword of Valerian, now faded, the crimson claw of Katara, bright and dominant, and the blue spiral of Tal, the most neutral of the 3 main clans. Hundreds of Aryans filled the tiered seats. Raiden, dressed in formal attire, felt like an exhibit in an alien zoo. "Remember," Astra whispered, "speak only when you are addressed directly. Maintain eye contact to show respect. Keep your hands always in plain sight to show that you are not reaching for a weapon." "Raiden is done." I listened carefully at the meeting. The elders of the 3 clans gathered in the center of the hall, sitting on a circular platform. The leaders of the 3 main clans, Drax, Katar, and Tal, were present, their imposing figures clad in ceremonial armor. Next to them, a calm-looking woman represented the Tal clan, while Astra represented the Valerian clan. "This is my father's wife. I'm the last of our kind old enough to attend council meetings," Astra whispered. The tall elder stood up, signaling silence. The council of the 3 clans was convened at the request of the Katar clan, which initiated the meeting. Drax stood up, his 4 eyes staring at Raiden with disdain. He spoke on behalf of his clan, and all those who honor our ancient customs. 5 solar cycles ago, an outsider unwittingly interfered in a sacred duel and claimed the clan blade. Now we are being asked to accept this man as the husband of the clan. He pronounced the word man, as if it were a curse. Astra firmly stated that the law is clear. Despite being outnumbered, her voice was resolute. The blade accepted him, and the connection was established. The Valerian clan has recognized Raiden Graves as their lawful husband and a member of their family. A clan can't choose an outsider who doesn't know their customs. Drax slammed his fist on the council table, and the representative of Tal raised a slender hand. "Maybe we should listen to the person himself." All eyes turned to Raiden. He straightened his shoulders, fully aware that his next words could either strengthen or undermine Astra's position. "Council members," he began carefully, "I will not pretend to understand all your customs or history. Where I come from, we don't have clan blades or ritual fights, but we understand honor, loyalty, and keep our word." He paused, meeting Drax's hostile gaze. "I didn't know what I was agreeing to when I raised this sword, but I'm not used to reneging on my commitments, even casual ones." "Beautiful words," Drax grinned, "but only words. If you really want to observe our customs, then demonstrate your worth with deeds, not just words." "What do you suggest?" the elder asked. Drax's lips curled into a predatory grin. "The trial of 3 trials, the traditional and appropriate way to assess the value of an outsider," he replied. Astra tensed up. "This test has not been performed for 7 generations, perhaps because it has not been necessary until now. Unless your human betrothed is willing to admit his inferiority now," Drax continued. Raiden felt Astra's grip on his wrist tighten, but he was already tired of Drax's posturing. "I agree," he said firmly. The hall exploded in amazement. Astra's fingers dug painfully into his arm. "You don't know what you agreed to," she hissed. "Then I guess I'll have to find out," he whispered back. "Because I will not back down from this challenge." The elder raised her hands, calling for silence. "It's decided. The test of the 3 testaments. At dawn tomorrow, the Raiden Graves man will face challenges of body, mind, and spirit. If he fails any of the tests, the bond between him and the Valerian clan will be severed, and the Katar clan will gain control of all remaining territories." Raiden turned to Astra, his face full of worry. I tried to calm her down, but she remained speechless, her face taking on a gloomy expression. When the council broke up, Drax came over to us. "Enjoy your last night as a clan husband, human," he said. "Tomorrow you will learn the true meaning of the power of the Aryans." Back in Astra's quarters, she explained the upcoming challenges to Raiden. He will participate in a physical battle against a champion chosen by Drax, a mental challenge that will test his strategic thinking and knowledge of their history and laws, and a spiritual journey through ancestral memories stored in the clan blade. "You have to complete all 3 of these tasks tomorrow, and you have to succeed in all 3, she said. "If you fail, all is lost." Her voice softened. "I understand your fear, but you have to be strong. I should have clarified this earlier, but I was trying to shield you from the depth of the situation you were in." For the first time, Raiden noticed a hint of vulnerability in her expression. On a hunch, he reached out and took her hand. Her skin was colder than a human's, but it was soft, and she didn't pull away. "I may not know much about your world," he said softly, "but I'm a fast learner, and I'm not going to let Drax win without a fight." There was a shift in her eyes, surprise perhaps, or the first glimmer of respect. Then we have a lot of things to prepare in a short time. The sun rose over the mountain fortress, painting the dark stone with amber light. In the ancient arena where Raiden first witnessed the Battle of Astra, hundreds of Aryans gathered to watch the trials. The air was filled with anticipation. No outsider had ever tried to pass the tests, and most of the audience expected to see a challenge. After the humiliating defeat, Raiden stood at the edge of the battle arena, wearing a modified crystal armor. The traditional armor was modified to match his larger human physique, with a dark purple cloth embroidered with silver clan insignia. Next to him, Astra was making the final adjustments to his armed guards. "Remember what we trained?" she asked softly. "Qatar Valerian warriors rely on speed and accuracy. They expect you to fight like a human, relying on brute force and lacking subtlety." "I'll surprise them," Raiden replied, clenching his fingers on the hilt of his practiced sword. Despite his confident words, his mouth went dry. A night of rigorous training hadn't prepared him for what was about to happen. Astra's fingers lingered on his arm. "You don't have to do this. We can still find another way." "There is no other way," he said. "And you know it," he added softly. "Besides, I've been through worse situations." Her expression said she doubted it, but she nodded. "May the ancestors be with your blade," she said when the horn sounded, signaling the beginning of the test. Drax approached from the other end of the arena, followed by an Aryan almost as big as himself, clad in crimson battle armor. "For the first trial," Drax announced, "I represent Korix, the third blade of the Qatar clan, undefeated in 17 ritual battles." There was a murmur from the crowd as Raiden glanced at Astra, whose expression had become tense. He chose their best melee specialist. Korix is known for incapacitating opponents rather than killing them. "This is considered more skillful," Astra whispered. "Great," Raiden muttered. "He will only hurt me instead of completing the task." The elder stepped forward. "The rules of battle are simple. The fight ends when one of the fighters surrenders or loses consciousness. Deadly force is prohibited." She stared at Korix, implying that she fully understood Drax's decision. Raiden entered the circle, facing his opponent. Korix towered over him, his 4 eyes narrowed in appreciation. "I've never fought a human before," he said, his voice surprisingly melodious for his size. "I've heard that your race bleeds red. I'm looking forward to confirming this." Raiden responded by adopting the stance that Astra had taught him at night. The horn sounded again, and Korix attacked with incredible speed. Only Raiden's fighting instincts, honed by years of mercenary work, saved him from being suppressed. He blocked the first blow, and using the alien's inertia, Korix quickly regained his balance and turned around with superhuman grace, launching a new attack. This time, his blade slipped past Raiden's defense, leaving a shallow cut on his ribs. A collective gasp rose from the crowd as crimson blood began to seep through the purple cloth. "Korix drew first blood," declared Drax with a smug tone. Raiden circled, carefully assessing his opponent. Astra was right. Trying to match Korix's speed and accuracy would be suicide. He needed to fight like a human, but with more cunning. The next time Korix lunged forward, Raiden didn't try to parry. Instead, he stepped into attack, accepting a glancing blow to the shoulder in exchange for access to Korix's defenses. Before Korix could react, Raiden smashed his forehead right into Korix's nose, which was clearly an unconventional move, and silenced the blue bloodstream. The members of the Qatar clan shouted in unison. "No!" When someone shouted, the voice of the Supreme Elders cut through the noise, declaring, "Unconventional, but within the rules of combat." Korix wiped his face, his expression changing from surprise to respect. "So people still know how to fight," he said. As the battle continued, each fighter adapted to the other's style. Raiden received more punches, but delivered some powerful ones of his own, mixing Astra's teachings with street fighting techniques he had learned on a dozen worlds. As the minutes turned into half an hour, both fighters began to get tired. Raiden caught a glimpse of Astra in the crowd, her posture tense. Something about her unwavering faith gave Raiden a new burst of energy. When Korix launched a barrage of punches, Raiden found a source of strength he didn't know existed, dodging the horizontal blow and grabbing Korix by the wrist. With both hands, Raiden used the alien's inertia to perform a simple human wrestling move that would have been unexpected by an Aryan. Korix crashed to the ground with a resounding blow, and before he could recover, Raiden took out his blade and held it against Korix's throat. For a moment, Korix's 4 eyes flashed with defiance, but then, to his surprise, he smiled. I surrender to the man who is Valerian's betrothed, he said. The arena exploded in a cacophony of jubilation and disbelief. Raiden reached out to help Korix up, a gesture that caught the Aryan warrior off guard. You fight in a unique way, Korix admitted, but effectively. Drax's face was a mask of barely contained rage as the tall elder stepped forward. The first test is completed. Raiden Graves demonstrated his physical prowess. She turned to Raiden, rest now. The second trial will begin at noon. When he left the battle arena, Astra approached him. Let's discuss our approach to the next challenge. At the edge of the arena, her eyes shone with an emotion he couldn't decipher. She started improvising, completely without a script. He finished with a tired grin. Your training has been invaluable, but I decided that my best chance is to surprise him. And of course you did. A smile touched her lips. I've never seen anyone headbutt a champion before. For the first time, he winced as the adrenaline began to subside, making him acutely aware of his numerous cuts and bruises. In a separate room adjacent to the arena, Astra helped him clean and bandage his wounds. Her touch was businesslike at first, but gradually became more gentle as she worked. Raiden found himself watching the play of emotions on her face, worry, relief, and something deeper that made his heart race. I didn't expect you to win, she confessed softly, applying ointment to the wound on his shoulder. I appreciate your support. It's not just that. Her fingertips lingered on his skin, defeating warriors with decades more experience than he had. What he did was extraordinary. Raiden caught her hand before she could pull it away. Perhaps your ancestors knew what they were doing when this blade chose him. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air between them seemed to sparkle with untold potential. Astra's gaze slid to his lips, then returned to his eyes. A deeper purple blush spread across her cheeks. The moment was interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. The second trial begins in 20 minutes, the voice announced. Astra pulled back, her composure returning like a mask sliding into place. We have to prepare, because the intelligence test will be even more difficult for us than the battle, she said. When she turned around to collect the materials they had been preparing all night, Raiden gently grabbed her wrist. Astra, he said, I am grateful for your faith in me, even when you didn't share it. I believe that I can win. There was a hint of tenderness in her manner. Maybe I'm starting to understand why the sword chose me in the end. The elder regained her confidence as soon as the ordeal ended. I do not know, he confessed, his voice hoarse with emotion. It seemed that the ether was alive, it responded to my touch. It was as if he recognized me, accepted me. Astra's eyes widened, and her hand reached out to touch the blade. It's true, she whispered, her voice filled with awe. It's like he's calling you, acknowledging your rightful place. Raiden nodded, a smile spreading across his face. I feel it too, he said, his voice full of surprise. It's like a bond between us. They both stood in silence for a moment, lost in thought. Then Astra turned to Raiden, her eyes shining with determination. We have to tell others, she said in a firm voice. We have to share this with the clan, with the world. This is a significant event, a turning point in our history. Raiden nodded, his heart filled with a sense of purpose. Yes, he said in a strong voice. We have to share this with the world. This is a significant event, a turning point in our history. Of course, I can rewrite this text, preserving its essence and replacing the names and titles, but I will not include explicit descriptions in it, as this violates my security rules. I will focus on emotional intimacy and the development of the characters' relationships. I've watched them all, your ancestors. Your father's gaze captivated me. He told you, the Ether family values the heart above all else. Raiden took her hands in his, and I believe I now understand the meaning. In the azure glow of the crystal, Astra's purple skin seemed to radiate an unearthly quality. Her silver hair, once pulled back into a severe hairstyle, now fell freely over her shoulders. Raiden had been captivated by her beauty from the moment he first saw her in the arena, but now, observing her vulnerability along with her strength, he found her completely charming. Astra, he said softly, I did not choose this connection, but if I had known you then as I know you now, I would have chosen it willingly. Her eyes widened, silver sparkles dancing in their depths. You can't mean that. Our customs are not your customs. Our world is not your world. Perhaps that's why the blade chose me. He stepped closer. Maybe sometimes we need someone who sees things differently. She remained motionless for a moment, her actions reflecting her determined nature. She closed the distance between them, and they shared a kiss. At first, he was hesitant, as if crossing boundaries that none of them had expected. Then something flared between them, a recognition that transcended their physical differences. When they finally parted, they were both breathing heavily. Raiden did not begin with the traditional Aryan greeting, but with a hint of unexpected humor, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I don't want to be too ordinary," he murmured, pulling her back to him. When they parted, Astra's expression changed. The warrior's protective shell was replaced with a softer expression. She took his hand and led him to her chambers. There they spent hours talking about their lives, their pasts, and their aspirations. With each revelation, the distance between them seemed to shrink. As night fell, their conversation became more personal, and their words became a whisper of promises. "Are you sure?" asked Raiden, standing on the threshold of irreversible changes. My customs have already made you my husband," Astra reminded him, her fingers tracing the contours of his jaw. "Now I choose to make you my true companion." What followed was a communication unlike anything Raiden had ever experienced. It was not just a physical union, but also a spiritual one. They danced together, discovering how their differences could deepen their bond. Together they created a harmony that neither of them had ever known before. After that, as they lay intertwined in the soft light of Zion, they felt a unity that transcended any physical or cultural boundaries. Zion's 2 moons were shining, and Astra traced the battle scars on Raiden's chest with gentle fingers. "The elders say that when 2 bloodlines are truly compatible, union can create a life that carries the strengths of both," she murmured. "But such unions between species are extremely rare." Raiden caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "Your father seemed to think that our bond was meant to be. Perhaps there is more to this compatibility than we realize." She smiled, a hint of mischief appearing in her eyes. "Perhaps we should test this theory carefully." Raiden's ascension to the throne of Astra was now official, and the political situation began to change. The Tao clan proposed a formal alliance, and the smaller houses declared their support. Even Korix, the warrior whom Raiden defeated, began to train with him, developing a fighting style that combined human and Aryan techniques. Only Drax remained openly opposed. Although he had to recognize Raiden's legitimacy, the immediate threat to the clan's territories had been neutralized. One morning, Raiden woke up to find Astra already dressed and standing by the window, her expression unreadable. "What happened? What is it?" he asked, instantly alert. She turned to him, her hand gently resting on his stomach. "Nothing happened, but something unexpected happened," she said softly, her voice full of surprise. "Our bloodlines are indeed compatible. I'm carrying our baby." For Raiden, this news was like a physical blow. In all the years of his travels through the stars, he had never imagined himself as a father, much less the father of a child who would connect the 2 worlds. He searched for words, but found only insufficient ones. Amazing, incredible. Astra walked over to the bed, taking his hands in hers. It was unprecedented. There has never been a child between a human and an Aryan before. Our son or daughter will be the first of its kind. How can you be sure that the pregnancy will proceed normally? The clan's healers have confirmed this. The child grows up strong. Her eyes met his. Suddenly, Raiden pulled her into his arms, hugging her with a tenderness that could not be expressed in words. "I never thought that I would have a family," he said, snuggling into her silver hair. "You gave me something I didn't even know I wanted." Hugging each other, they knew that their love would be strong enough to overcome any difficulties. The early morning light could not foresee the path their child would take, becoming the center of a storm that would change not only their lives, but also Zion's future. The news of Astra's unexpected pregnancy spread through the clans like wildfire. What started as a curiosity, a man who became the husband of a clan, has now turned into a phenomenon that challenged the very foundations of Aryan society. A child from 2 worlds, carrying both human and Aryan blood, had never been conceived before. Many perceived pregnancy as a miracle, a sign of the favor of their ancestors. Others, especially those loyal to Drax, saw it as an abomination, a threat to the purity of their bloodlines. The debate raged both in the council chambers and in ordinary homes. For Raiden and Astra, however, the political consequences took a back seat to more pressing concerns. As Astra's pregnancy progressed, her body underwent changes unlike any Aryan's. The healer noticed that the child was developing faster than a typical Aryan fetus, but slower than a human one. The healer noted that the child displayed unique characteristics combining both bloodlines. "Everything is going well," Astra said one evening as they sat in their private garden, watching the moons of Zion rise over the mountain peaks. Her hand rested on her swollen stomach, where the outline of their active child could be seen from time to time. Raiden placed his hand next to hers, marveling at the strong thrusts into his palm. He said their child would be a fighter like their mother, or perhaps a wanderer like their father. She responded with a smile, saying that in any case, their child would make his own way. Raiden raised an eyebrow, asking if they knew it was a boy. Astra confirmed, stating that the healers confirmed it today, the son of Valerian and Earth. Their serene moment was disrupted by the arrival of Melis, Valerian's young guardian. He informed them that the High Elder had summoned them to the council chamber because the Qatar clan had requested their presence. As they were heading to an emergency meeting, Raiden noticed increased security throughout the fortress. Soldiers from the Tau clan stood next to the guards at strategic locations, a show of alliance that would have been unthinkable months earlier. The hall was already full when they arrived, and Drax stood in the center, holding a battered scroll case in his massive hands. "Ah, the man and his companion," Drax said, his tone laced with barely concealed contempt. "How fortunate that you're arriving, just as we were discussing the abomination growing inside her." Raiden stepped forward, his anger obvious, but he put a restraining hand on Drax's arm. "Choose your words wisely, Drax," he said in a firm voice. "You're talking about the heir of the clan, the heir." Drax let out a harsh laugh. "Or the fulfillment of the prophecy of disintegration," he said, holding up the scroll case. "This text, found in ancient archives, speaks of a time when the blood of aliens from beyond the stars will mix with the blood of the ancestral clans, signaling a new beginning." At the end of the ceremony, the venerable elder came over and asked to study the prophecy. Reluctantly, Drax handed over the scroll. After a few minutes of silent reading, the elder looked up. Drax chose certain passages from the text, and she stated, "The full prophecy says, when the blood of the stars mixes with the blood of the ancestral clans, the child born from this union will usher in the end of an era of division and strife. In the hands of this child, the blades of many houses will become one, and a new era of unity will begin." The audience burst into applause. Drax's face contorted with anger. "You're twisting the words to fit your agenda," she said. "I've read what's written, but there's something else." The prophecy continues. "The blade of the oldest house will choose the bearer of the star blood, recognizing in him a heart that can heal our divided world." All eyes turned to Raiden, who was now wearing a transformed and lifeless blade at his side. The advice was forgotten when Raiden quickly picked up Astra in his arms and ran out of the hall, followed by the clan's chief healer and a squad of Marines. Hours later, in the sacred birth chamber, Astra was going through a labor that tested even her warrior spirit. Raiden stayed by her side, his arm almost crushed in her grip. Astra's body was convulsing from contractions when their baby was finally born, his first cry echoing through the ancient stone chambers with amazing intensity. The healers quickly cleaned the newborn and placed him in the arms of Astra, the perfect combination of both parents. The child's skin was a paler shade of purple than his mother's, with subtle shades of human pink, and his head was decorated with a crown of silver-white hair. When his eyes briefly opened, they were unmistakably human-shaped, albeit with silvery flecks reminiscent of Astra's eyes. "My father, Raiden and Drax," Astra said softly. Their private conversation was interrupted by the commotion outside. The doors swung open, revealing Korix, blood dripping from a wound above his eyes. Drax made his move. He choked up, claiming that the prophecy was a fake, and demanded that the child be examined by the healers of Qatar to confirm his viability. But his true motives were clear. Raiden stood up, taking a position between the door and his family. "He will have to go through me first, and then through him, Korix. I stand with Valerian and others in this, as does Korix. We were not only in the vanguard, but also warriors from the Tau clan, and even some who wore the colors of Qatar, those who decided to challenge Drax's desperate attempt to seize power. The High Elder declared a sanctuary for the child, Korix, but Drax refused to acknowledge her authority. Astra struggled to sit up, still weak from giving birth, and I helped her get up. "I will not face this threat lying down. You need to rest, and I need to protect our son," she interrupted firmly, realizing the futility of arguing in our clan. Raiden helped her up, and she swayed slightly, but regained her balance, clutching Tibor protectively to her chest. They didn't have to wait long when Drax's voice boomed from the hallway, demanding entry. When the doors opened, he was standing there with a dozen armed warriors, his face a mask of righteous fury. "The abomination must be examined. I declare, for the sake of everyone's safety, Qatar Valerian is not an abomination, Astra replied, her voice firm despite her fatigue. He is the heir of the Aaron clan, fulfilling the prophecy. A convenient prophecy that appeared just when we needed it. Drax chuckled. A prophecy written long before any of us were born. Another voice intervened. It was an elder accompanied by representatives from all the major and minor clans. A prophecy that speaks of unity, not division. Tibor's gaze swept the room, noting the numerical superiority their faction had gained. You will all follow this stranger, this man who knows nothing about our customs. This is a man who has passed every test you set for him, Korix pointed out. This is a man who has brought more honor to his adopted clan in months than you have brought to Qatar in years. This is a man who loves his wife and son, Raiden added quietly, and will do everything possible to protect them. Something changed in Drax's expression. Perhaps because of his unwavering commitment to tradition and cleanliness, he misjudged the situation. He failed to recognize the winds of change that swept across Qatar Valerian, and which would unite the clans. The elder firmly stated that perhaps not now, but eventually the prophecy would be fulfilled, and the ancestors would reveal their will through their choice of blades. For a moment, the room balanced on a knife's edge. With a growl of frustration, Drax lowered his weapon. He warned that the threat was not over, but his words sounded empty, even to his own ears. The elder corrected him, saying that the council had voted, and the Qatar clan would accept the legitimacy of Norver's heir. Otherwise they would be left alone against the combined opposition of all other clans. Drax had no choice but to retreat while his followers were leaving. The tension in the room gradually dissipated, replaced by cautious optimism. Well, Raiden said, turning back to Astra and their son, it was a very welcome addition to the world. Astra, smiling tiredly, is his father's son. He's already changing everything wherever he goes. A year later, Raiden stood on the highest balcony of Naren Fortress, watching ships from Earth descend through the atmosphere of Zion. The first official diplomatic mission from the human worlds had arrived, and Raiden had it in his hands. Tibor excitedly pointed at the fire trails with his tiny purple fingers, saying, "Yes, that's where Dad came from," Raiden explained. "One day we'll take you there to see it." Astra joined them, her silver hair now decorated with the official insignia of the clan leader. The past year has brought significant changes to Zion. The prophecy, combined with the undeniable reality of Tibor's healthy development, changed the age-old isolationist thought. Under the joint leadership of Raiden and Astra, the Valerian clan has opened a new era. The era of union between families, even after Drax, after a period of confrontation. After he finally accepted the new reality, especially after Korix summoned and replaced him as the head of the Qatar clan, in a surprisingly bloodless transition of power. "Are you nervous?" asked Astra, hugging Raiden around the waist. "Introducing my alien wife and semi-alien son to my former commander?" "Not at all," he replied with a grin that belied his words. Representatives of all the clans gathered in the Great Hall for a historic meeting. The Terran delegation led by Admiral Charles entered with due ceremony, although Raiden noticed barely concealed surprise in their eyes as they surveyed the ancient architecture and purple-skinned Aryans. "Captain Graves," Admiral Charles greeted him with a crisp salute, which was quickly replaced by a sincere smile. "I never expected to find you married to an alien clan leader with a half-human son. Life leads us wherever it wants to go." Unexpectedly, Admiral Raiden responded with a salute, firmly shaking the hand of an elderly man. He introduced Astra and Tibor, his wife and co-leader of the clan, and Tibor, their son. The Admiral's eyes widened as he looked at the child, a mixture of the two species, but somehow harmonious rather than discordant. "Wonderful," he murmured, "truly wonderful." Later, when the diplomatic event came to an end, Raiden found himself alone with Admiral Charles in one of the ancient courtyards of the fortress. "You've done something extraordinary here, Graves," the Admiral said. "I just raised the sword," Raiden shrugged, and everything else followed that moment. Sometimes a single moment of courage is enough to change everything. The Admiral turned to him. "The Alliance is very interested in establishing permanent relations with Qatar Valerian. Your son represents opportunities that we could never have imagined." After thinking about this issue, Raiden unequivocally stated that he did not consider Charles as a scientific experiment. He agreed with Astra, who argued that Charles is a living example of the fact that their species is more compatible than previously thought, and that this has significant implications for the future. Raiden nodded in agreement, and they discussed the implications of this, expressing the wish that Tibor could explore both worlds and cultures and serve as a guide between them. They wanted him to be the first, but not the only bridge between their peoples. The admiral smiled and stated that the alliance was ready to provide full diplomatic support and trade benefits to Tibor in exchange for cultural exchange and mutual training. After the Earth delegation went to their temporary quarters, Raiden and Astra retired to their private quarters. There they laid their sleeping son in his exquisite cradle made of earth oak and decorated with Aryan silver. Astra noticed, "Your admiral seemed like a wise man, and I agree with that assessment. This partnership will be beneficial for both our nations." Raiden agreed, and he was right about one thing. What we have created here is truly wonderful. He hugged her from behind. It wasn't just a political alliance, but also this United States of Asters. She turned in his arms, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the crystal lamps. "When you first picked up my clan's sword, I thought you had ruined everything. Now I understand that you saved everything, not only my life, but also the future of my clan. But we saved it together," he corrected gently, "and we will build this future together, day by day." As they stood in the silence of their chambers, another transformed clan blade hung on the wall nearby, seeming to pulse with a faint light, as if the ancestors themselves were blessing this new chapter in the ancient history of Zion. Outside, 2 moons cast their silver light on the mountains. The fortress shone brightly, illuminating a world forever changed by an impulsive act of courage and the unexpected love that followed. Tibor Raiden, heir to 2 worlds and harbinger of a new era, slept peacefully, unaware of the legacy he embodied or the future he envisioned. However, his parents and those who witnessed his birth knew. Some bonds transcend worlds, and some destinies are written in the stars before we realize them. Raiden, once a ruthless wanderer among the stars, embarked on his greatest adventure when he drew his sword to protect a stranger. Now, as Astra's husband and Tibor's father, he has found not just a clan, but a home and a purpose beyond his wildest dreams. It all started when he used his clan's sword to protect Astra, unaware that he would become her husband.